I'm fantastic. I guess we're going to get started now. Okay. Members, a quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the gallery and in the rear of the chambers to please stand. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Papademos, to please come forward to offer today's prayer.
Let us pray. Lord, we lift up our hearts in praise to you this day. We invoke your presence in our midst and acknowledge our need and dependence on your mercy and compassion. Our lives become richer when we acknowledge that we are not the center of the universe, but you are. Amen.
Please remain standing. We'll have the pledge led by Assemblywoman Buchanan.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have the reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, June 11, 2009. Assemblyman at 9 a.m.
Mr. Tirico moves and Mr. Blakely seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction of reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. Today we have the absence of Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Tirico.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent for Assembly members Cotto, Fuller, and Torlakson to have photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow the following members: Mr. Bell, Mr. Tom Berryhill, Mr. DeLeon, Mr. Eng, Ms. Galgiani, Mr. Jones, Mr. Logue, and Ms. Skinner to personally adjourn in memory of individuals today.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to suspend the rules to allow the conferees on SB 61, the Conference Committee on the Budget, to add on today's rolls as if they were present if any votes are taken. They are Assembly members Evans, Blumenfield, DeLeon, Nielo, and Nielsen.
Without objection. We'll now move to the second reading. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 11, 67, 61, Senate Bill 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 116, and Senate Bill 424 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Mr. Tirico.
Mr. Speaker, if we can return to motion resolutions momentarily, I request that Mr. Gaines objects to placing file item 32, SB 116, by Mr. Calderon on the consent calendar.
Clerk will note. Members will now move to special presentations and introductions. Members, we have guests in the chambers. Mr. Cotto requests to present a member's resolution to Mr. Sanderfield, who is retiring. Mr. Cotto.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I request, I'm going to ask Assemblymember Jim Bell, long-term councilman and county supervisor in Santa Clara County, to join me as we make this presentation of this resolution. Now, I request permission to introduce Monsignor John Sandersfeld, the founding pastor of St. Francis of Assisi Church in San Jose and longtime community activist in the San Jose area. Monsignor Sandersfeld is retiring after many years of distinguished religious service. Today we want to honor his many contributions not only to the religious movement, but to the historic farm worker movement and his efforts to stop gang violence in San Jose. Might want to add that Monsignor Sandersfeld was extremely instrumental in enabling the East San Jose area to pass some significant general obligation bonds for the students of the city of San Jose. Over the years, Monsignor Sandersfeld has worked hard to bring together members of the community in a peaceful manner to work through difficulties and develop policies that provide equality, dignity, and respect for all. Members, I am presenting him with this resolution commemorating his significant achievements and expressing our gratitude for all he has done for the residents of San Jose and the state of California. Thank you very much, member. Please join me with a big round of applause.
Members will now have a special presentation by Dr. Fuller. Dr. Fuller. All right. Dr. Fuller, are you ready for your presentation?
Yes, thank you. I rise to honor Anastasia Gelmini. Anastasia is a graduate. Well, she's not a graduate. She's actually still in high school at Shafter High, which is my alumni high school. And we are very proud of Anastasia because in addition to winning the California Interscholastic State
Members,
track
if we can have your attention on the floor, please.
and field meet for 2009, Anna has thrown the longest shot toss in U.S. high school history, the second longest shot toss in high school U.S. history, which was 54 feet 4 3/4 inches. And let's have Anna step out so you can see her, and I'm going to run back and present this to her. She's one of the first females to have shot put and discus titles in the state of California back to back, and her very long toss was only 6 inches shorter than Olympian Susie Powell. So we just think she's got quite a history, and we're very proud of her.
Mr. Torlakson, before you begin, Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I just want to note that upstairs we have with us a 4th annual API Legislative Caucus Institute Capital Academy class. It is local elected officials that have come here to learn more about Sacramento. Thank you.
Welcome to the Capitol. Mr. Torlakson, along with Senator Rod Wright, is present. They were requesting to recognize our 2009 California Interscholastic Federation State Track and Field Championship. We're honored to have all of them present with us today. We have Long Beach Poly, we have Cathedral High School, we have Frontier High School, Clovis East High School, and La Sierra High School. Mr. Torlakson, please do the honors.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. We're proud today to recognize some of the finest athletes on the planet, and the California State Championship Track Meet is the single event in the world that produces the most Olympian athletes. Member Fuller just shared with you the outstanding accomplishments of Anastasia Gelmini, who is going to be an Olympian and will be setting more records besides the national record she currently holds in the discus. So we're going to first present the girls' team and then talk about the outstanding accomplishments of the guys' team. But we see every year when these people gather together, and this year it was at Clovis near Fresno, an incredible facility, 17,000 track fans, and these athletes, heart and soul, set goals, set dreams out, and a regimen of discipline and hard work that gets them to the top of the nation's athletes in track and field. So we're so proud to have them here today. Senator Rod Wright and I were there. We got to hand the trophies out on the field when they were first announced. It's an incredible experience to see these athletes achieve. These young people were so joyous at their success, personal records, just the reward for all the hard work and the great pride they have in their school and their community and their team. Thanks to the coaches. We would now like to have the legislators representing the schools, the boys and the girls schools, come forward, and Warren Furutami, Assemblymember Furutami, and Ms. Lowenthal, Assemblymember Lowenthal, Bonnie, if you could be here to present to the girls team the 10th time they've won a championship. They hold the record for the most championships of the girls teams in California, Long Beach Poly High School. let's shake the hand of the outstanding coach here and have the athletes just come forward. Move over here. We have a coaches team. Takes that inspirational coach leader to help young people guide their way along, and these coaches and these athletes have just achieved the pinnacle of success. Let's hear it for these outstanding athletes. California is proud of Long Beach Poly High School. They're going to mosey on out for a little bit while we have the 4 boys teams. This was an incredible year where 4 teams tied. We're going to have a presentation to the 4 teams and then proceed to have our Speaker Pro Tem, Isidore Hall, make an incredible presentation to some track heroes that have inspired these young people. So next we want to recognize, and I'm going to have one of them just wave, and then he'll come forward and accept the championship. Okay. We'll do Cathedral High School next of the boys teams. Again, incredible athletes. We're going to ask Assembly Member Kevin De Leon to come back here to help make the presentation and say a word or two. Mr. De Leon is a track man himself, a cross-country runner, still running long distance, hard to keep up with. This team did an outstanding job. Mr. De Leon, do you want to say something in making the presentation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Torlix. And I want to give a very special recognition to the boys from Cathedral High School. It's in the 45th Assembly District, adjacent next to Chinatown. And these young men are superb athletes. I just want you to know that we're very proud of your accomplishments. Coach Ivory, thank you very much for what you do to help young men and women, but particularly these young men, you know, do wonderful things and accomplish the wonderful, you know, championships that you have secured. I want to also give a very special recognition to a young man who's part of the Cathedral High School track team, which is Mr. Randall Carroll, who, by the way, is the CIF state champion in the 100 meters and 200 meters, not just last year, but also this year too. So we have a state CIF champion in the 100, 200 meter, and in California, they've usually gone to the Olympics and beyond that. So I will say you got a full ride to UCLA also too, young man. So let's give these young men here a strong round of applause and recognition.
Randall Carroll's going to UCLA, by the way, on the way to the Olympics.
Hi, is Gustavo there? Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank Senator Rod Wright for arranging this every year. He was a great track athlete himself, ran around 46 in the 400 meters. That's fast. Rod, thank you for arranging this and bringing together the transportation for these athletes to be able to come here and to make the presentation. And I'd like you to say a few words. Clovis East is here, the Timberwolves. We just saw the Phantoms from Cathedral. Now it's the Timberwolves from Clovis East High School. Mr. Valines is here to help make the presentation. Would you like to say anything as we would proceed, or just give them the good? Let's have our.
Well, I just want to say, well, first of all, thank you for doing this, sir. And this is a great day. Clovis East High School, of course, is where my 3 kids will go to school. and one of them who runs the mile will be going there one day. So it's exciting to see these champions and have the coach here, and just great honor to have you up here. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, we're next pleased to have Frontier High School, also honored as a co-champion, and Assemblymember Fuller is here to do the honors to present the award to Frontier High School. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you very much.
You won 2 events? Yes, sir. You won 2 events? Which were they? Yes. And you were co-mayor? Matt Darr won the discus and the shot put CIF champion, and therefore got the points for his school to make it all the way as a tie. And he's going to be a punter for USC. There you go. Congratulations. Our last school to recognize has an athlete on the team as well as a great team, La Sierra High School. The athlete broke a national record. Think of how many young people for decades and decades have tried to achieve what he did. He broke a national record at this meet. Reggie Wyatt is right here, 35.02 for an incredible national record in the low hurdles. Great endurance, great skill. Just exemplifying, again, California athletes and this particular team. We're pleased to have Assembly Members Jeffries and Miller here to make the presentation to La Sierra High School, who tied as co-championship team, and again, with incredible achievement by Reggie Wyatt and his coaches. Where are you going to school again, Reggie? USC. For those of you from UCLA, Reggie's going to USC. He's going to do a great job representing athletes and our country as time goes on. We're pleased now to have Rod Wright say a word, and Isidore Hall is going to present us with 2 inspirational track heroes who are inspirational to these athletes, and we'll conclude our recognition. Isidore Hall.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, members, it's indeed an honor to recognize a young lady who has for many years been a trailblazer in the world and in the field of athletics. This year, the legislature is proud to recognize Miss Ingrid Miller. Miss Miller was the 1999 World 200-meter champion, 1999 World Champs, 100-meter silver medalist, 1996 Olympic 4-time 100-medal relay gold medalist, 4-time 1100-meter relay gold medalist at the 1997 World Champs, 2003 World Outdoor 4-time 100-meter silver medalist. She is the daughter of Lennox Miller, and Olympic champion runner from Jamaica. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me recognize none other than Miss Ingrid Miller. Her Assembly Member Anthony Portantino is present. We'll ask him to come over as well. Inker.
Oh, now? Oh, okay. There's two little questions, that's it.
Without objection, we recognize Senator Wright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, it's my honor today to present to some of you in the Assembly an old friend of mine. Some of you may remember the Mexico Olympic Games in 1968. He was the bronze medalist in the 200 meters, and along with his colleague who took the gold medal in that event, Tommie Smith, set a standard for track and field around the world as they protested the condition and treatment of African Americans in the world at that time. He is a former world record holder in the 200 meters. He was a part of what is now known as Speed City, which was then called San Jose State. Please welcome my old friend and track guy who now resides in Palm Springs, Dr. John Carlos.
Hello, Robert.
As the photos continue, I'd like to recognize Assemblymember Torrico for an introduction from his desk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to welcome from the Asian Pacific Islander Capital Academy up here on my left several students of the Academy class, Councilmember Sue Chan from Fremont, Jay Chen from the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District, Rod Shao, trustee on the San Mateo County Board of Education, Noah Lord, Merced City Council Member, Victor Manolo, Artesia City Council Member, Hydra Mendoza, San Francisco Unified School District Board of Education, David Mineta from the Jefferson Union High School District Board of Trustees, Anu Natarajan from the Fremont City Council, and Lisa Normandy from the Board of Trustees of the South San Francisco Unified School District, and finally Andy Quach, Council Member from the City of Westminster. Please join me in welcoming our guests to the Capitol.
Welcome to the Assembly Chambers. And as our guests in the rear of chambers complete their photos, we have another guest who's joining us today. She is a guest of Mr. Valines and Ms. Caballero, Ashley Hoffman, who is Miss Rodeo California for 2009. If you would step around the other gentleman there and step forward, we'd like to welcome you, Miss Ashley Hoffman, Miss Rodeo California 2009. Welcome, Miss Hoffman. And Ms. Caballero.
Yes, Madam Speaker and members, I am very proud to welcome Ms. Hoffman. I wanted to tell you a little bit about her. Apart from representing the state of California as the Miss Rodeo California, she graduated early from Stanford University with a BA in philosophy and a minor in political science. We may see her in this August building one of these days. She plans to go to law school where she will establish her own law practice in land use planning, and she enjoys packing with her family in the Sierras, gathering and branding cattle, reining, team penning, and promoting writing for reading. She hails from the Salinas Valley, and we're very proud to have her here today. Obviously a very talented young woman.
Welcome. Members, we will move on now to business on the daily file. Second reading, clerk will read. Has been completed? Concurrence, none at this time. Reconsideration will be continued. We move on to Assembly third reading. File items 35 through 39 are pass and retain. Mr. Emerson is prepared to take up file item 40. Clerk will read.
Senate concurrent resolution 39 by Senator Steinberg relative to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis awareness month.
You may open, Dr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SCR 39 commemorates May 2009, yes, the month that just passed, as ALS Awareness Month, commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Every 90 minutes, someone in the United States contracts ALS, and every 90 minutes in the United States, somebody dies of ALS. ALS causes patients to lose their ability to use their muscles, but their minds stay as active and as alert as ever. They are completely aware of their surroundings, but are unable to communicate in any way. Some have compared this to being buried alive. There is no diagnostic test for ALS. There is no known prevention, cause, or cure. I have sent to your offices an article with information regarding ALS will be distributed shortly. This July 4th marks the 70th anniversary of Lou Gehrig's famous speech at Yankee Stadium. In honor of all those who share this condition, I would like to ask you that this 4th of July, we take a moment to consider how we can bring awareness to this tragic condition. Please help me supporting SCR 39, commemorating the month of May as Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis Month. I would like to request that the first roll be open for co-authors.
Very well. The first roll is for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. This is for co-authors, members. This is for co-authors. Clerk will close the roll. We have 64 co-authors. We can take a voice vote on adopting this. All those in favor of adopting the resolution signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. We move on to our second legislative day consent calendar. Clerk will read.
Senate concurrent resolution 31 by Assemblymember Runner and others relative to Scleroderma Awareness Month.
Clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is the consent calendar, members. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0.
Senate concurrent resolution 45.
Aye 68, no 0. This concludes business on the daily file. Our schedule for the week will be as follows. Check-in session Tuesday, the 16th of June. Check-in session Wednesday, the 17th of June. Floor session 9 a.m. Thursday, the 18th of June. I do have another announcement. Assemblymember Caballero would like to introduce Janet Barnes, who is a council member from the city of Salinas. She is with us here today in the rear of chambers. So we'd like to welcome you this morning, or this afternoon. Welcome. Members, we'll move on to adjourn in memory requests. Those have been announced in addition to the ones previously announced. Assemblymember De La Torre has requested to do an adjourn in memory. So we will begin with Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to adjourn in memory of Dr. Brian Haggerty. Brian was raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and moved to Santa Clara, California. where he went to Santa Clara University and graduated with a bachelor's degree in English. He earned his California teacher's credential and began teaching in the Diocese of San Jose in 1996. 3 years later, after achieving a master's degree in education, also from Santa Clara, he began teaching 7th and 8th grade language arts at St. Clair in Santa Clara. He became part of the administrative team as vice principal in 2001 and returned and got a graduate degree and a doctorate degree in education from the leadership of Catholic Educational Leadership at USF. His doctoral research focused on the use of moral education strategies in Catholic schools, and he recently being named head of St. Clair as principal. He was supposed to begin as principal in August. Brian had led the new teachers program for the Diocese of San Jose since 2002 and served the Diocesan Lay Employees Retirement Committee. In addition to providing in-services for teachers involving curriculum, he also conducted the parent education workshops, specifically in adolescent development. He was also involved in the accreditation process for the Western region of the United States for Catholic schools. He chaired numerous visiting teams from the process overseeing schools in Alameda, Hollister, El Cerrito, Bakersfield, and Phoenix. In addition, he loved and was dedicated to teaching. Brian also enjoyed music, baseball, and the New York Times crossword puzzle. This was a man of great depth and compassion, and was just appointed the principal of St. Clair when he unexpectedly passed on. And he will be forever missed by his family, his students, and his community. And I ask that we adjourn today in his memory.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Assembly members Galgiani, Tom Berryhill, and Mr. Eng have also requested to adjourn in memory today. We will begin with Ms. Galgiani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to adjourn in memory of California Transportation Commission member Kirk Lindsay of Modesto, who passed away on June 10th. Mr. Lindsay was a loving husband and father of 4 daughters. He owned and managed an agricultural trucking firm. He coached and mentored high school students, and he also managed to perform public service to his community and state in numerous capacities over the years. He'll be greatly missed as the longest-standing member of the California Transportation Commission. For me, he was like, for many people, a mentor, a teacher, and a friend. He had an insightful understanding of complex issues, and he could explain and discuss it in understandable terms with the greatest patience. He was a big man with a booming voice who at first meeting could be a little intimidating until you spent some time with him and realized how warm, generous, honest, and personable he was. I first sought Kirk Lindsay for his knowledge and advice on transportation and related issues, and like many others, I ended up gaining much, much more, his wisdom and his friendship, which I shall always treasure. I joined my colleagues in the Assembly and people from the Central Valley, and as well as his family, his wife Cindy and his 4 daughters, of whom he was so proud, and thank them for sharing him to serve the state of California.
Thank you, Ms. Galgiani. Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, as Kathleen mentioned, for more than 3 decades, Kurt was dedicated to local and state government in Stanislaus and San Joaquin County. He's quite a special guy, members. His presence in the community will greatly be missed. Kirk was not just involved in agricultural trucking business. He ran outside of Modesto. He was absolutely dedicated to being part of his community, as so many people in the various communities are today. Whether it was coaching for 20 years the Bayer Girls High School swimming team, or serving on a number of boards and organizations, including president of the Modesto Chamber, such as his work he was accomplished during his time in the California Transportation Commission. He also held leadership posts at one time or another in the Modesto Chamber of Commerce, Stanislaus Economic Development and Workforce Alliance, Stanislaus Partners in Communication, and many, many other roles in the hopes to create the right infrastructure to support education and ability to retain our workforce. He was really a champion when it came to that. Kirk spent his life to change the valley for the good and to make Stanislaus County and its surrounding area a vibrant place to work and live. He was the type of guy, members, that he had that big baritone booming voice. When he walked in the room, you really couldn't miss him. But at the end of the day, it was really just a big teddy bear, and everybody loved him. So he will be dearly missed, and our deepest condolences go to his family and friends in this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berryhill. Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As was stated by my colleagues, Mr. Lindsay was a long-standing prominent member of the California Transportation Commission. He was first appointed to the commission in 2000 by then Governor Gray Davis and reappointed to the commission by Governor Schwarzenegger in 2004 and 2008. Mr. Lindsay served as a knowledgeable and sensible voice for transportation, particularly for the rural areas of our state. Over the course of his tenure on the commission, he advocated on behalf of 26 rural transportation planning agencies, and he will be remembered for such important projects as the Sutter Creek Bypass in Amador County, the Missouri Flat Interchange in El Dorado County, and the Lincoln Bypass in Placer County. For more than 3 decades, Mr. Lindsay was dedicated to local and state governments affecting Stanislaus County and the San Joaquin Valley. He will be very, very sorely missed.
Thank you, members. We move on now to Mr. Jones.
Madam Speaker, members, I rise and ask that we adjourn in memory of my friend and former law school classmate, Luke Winthrop Cole. Luke was raised in California, New York, and Nigeria, where he accompanied his family on their research trips. His father was a famed art historian. Luke graduated from Stanford in 1984 and worked for 3 years with Ralph Nader as one of Nader's raiders, editing a consumer advice newsletter. I met Luke in the late 80s at law school. He was a tremendous presence at law school, very active in student politics, student government, public interest law, and most importantly, a leader in the environmental justice movement, even as a student at law school. Upon his graduation from law school, unlike so many of our colleagues at law school, Luke chose to go into public interest law, spurning a number of lucrative financial offers from major corporate law firms. Instead chose to work with California Rural Legal Assistance, where, with Ralph Abascal's help, he founded the Center on Race, Poverty, and the Environment to address environmental justice issues. As the executive director of this important nationwide program, Luke battled toxic waste facilities, pollution from dairies, pollution from mining companies, and other pollution threats in poor and minority communities. He first demonstrated the importance of this landmark approach, combining social equity and social justice advocacy with environmental advocacy, in a tremendously important and landmark case in 1990, where he represented Latino residents in the city of Kettleman in the San Joaquin Valley to defeat a proposed toxic waste incinerator project by pointing out, among other things, that the EIR had not been written in the language of the community members most significantly impacted by this toxic waste incinerator, and that would be Spanish. From 1996 to 2000, Luke served on the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's National Environmental Justice Advisory Council. He also taught environmental justice law at Stanford School of Law, Balt Hall, and Hastings College of the Law. He took off early in March of this year on what was supposed to be a 4-month sabbatical, traveling to South America, Antarctica, Madagascar, and South Africa. Uganda, where his brother lives, was supposed to be the last stop on this worldwide tour. He was traveling with his wife on a rural road in western Uganda when a truck hit their vehicle head-on. Luke was killed as a result of this accident. He is survived by his wife, Nancy, their son, Zane, and many other family members and friends, and countless others who have been touched by his public interest advocacy as a real leader in the environmental justice movement here in California and across the nation. I ask that we adjourn in his memory.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. De Leon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also, too, rise with Mr. Dave Jones to adjourn in the memory of Mr. Luke Cole. Mr. Luke Cole, in short, was a man who dedicated his life to those who historically have been marginalized, both socioeconomically as well as politically here in the state of California. But he was a man, as Mr. Jones just articulated very eloquently, a man who's dedicated his life to environmental justice. As Mr. Jones just stated with regards to Kettleman City and the incinerator in that town, it wasn't just there, but throughout the state of California, where he focused his energies. He also was a man who, as Dave Jones just articulated, the Executive Director for Center of Race, Poverty, and Environment, and this is an organization who also co-sponsors one of our measures, Mr. Manuel Perez and my measure. This is a big loss, a big tragedy, unfortunate premature death, and I also too rise in adjournment in memory of Mr. Luke Cole.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Before we move on to our next adjourn in memory members, I'd just like to welcome, in the rear of chambers, we have former Assembly Member John Laird joining us today. Mr. Laird, good afternoon. Welcome back. We go on to Ms. Skinner. Ms. Skinner is not at her desk. Mr. De La Torre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Assemblymember Calderon and I would like to adjourn in memory of Lance Corporal Joshua R. Whittle from the city of Downey. Lance Corporal Whittle passed away at the age of 20 on June 6th while supporting combat operations in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. He graduated in 2007 from Warren High School in Downey and had been assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marine Regiment, based out of Hawaii. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Whittle family.
Thank you, Mr. De La Torre. Members, all remaining adjourned in memories shall be deemed read and added to today's journal. Is there any further business to come before this House? Seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And a second. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. The ayes have it. Just a moment. Just a moment. Mr. De Leon moved and Mr. Blakesley seconded. All right, members, the ayes have it. Quorum call is lifted. We are adjourned.